What if I told you that going months or years without sex can cause the penis to physically shrink, lose the ability to stay hard, and slowly stop responding altogether? Not emotionally, not psychologically. I mean real structural change inside the erectile tissue. I have seen men who once had powerful erections look down one day and realize their penis no longer behaves like it used to. Morning erections gone, sensitivity fading, a softer, shorter erection that disappears the moment anxiety appears. And the worst part is the silence. Men suffer alone, pretending nothing is wrong, terrified to try again because they fear failure. They say it is just aging, but something inside them whispers that they are losing the part of themselves that made them feel alive. Here is the paradox. Most men think that avoiding sex protects them from disappointment. In reality, long-term inactivity is one of the fastest ways to weaken erectile tissue, reduce blood flow, accelerate testosterone decline, increase curvature and tightness, and damage the cardiovascular system that keeps the penis functioning. But there is powerful hope. There are scientifically proven ways to begin rebuilding erections in as little as 24 hours, even if it has been years. Inside every erection are two chambers of erectile tissue that depend on strong, oxygen-rich blood flow to stay healthy. These chambers are living tissue. They need to be exercised. They need to expand and stretch. They need pressure, oxygen, and stimulation to maintain their structure. When erections stop happening regularly, the body begins to treat that tissue like something no longer needed. Blood flow declines, oxygen supply drops, smooth muscle cells inside the penis begin to weaken. And here's the part that almost no one talks about. Once those muscle cells begin to deteriorate, the body replaces them with collagen, a tougher material similar to scar tissue. This is the same process that causes stiffness after an injury, but it can happen inside the penis without any pain and without any warning. Slowly, the elastic sponge-like tissue begins to harden. It becomes less flexible. It loses its ability to stretch and fill with blood. This is the true beginning of erectile decline, and most men do not realize it is happening until one morning they wake up and realize something is missing. No morning erection, less sensitivity, less volume, less confidence. Many men describe it to me the same way. It feels like their body has betrayed them. They look down and feel unfamiliar with the man they see. The physical shrinking is not always dramatic, but the emotional impact is profound. It is not just about sex, it is about identity, dignity, connection, and the powerful sense of manhood that shaped their entire life. Losing that strength even quietly can feel like losing a part of the soul, and yet they say nothing. They wait, hoping it will return on its own. They tell themselves it is normal. They pretend they are not worried. But deep down, there is a moment every man remembers. The moment he realizes he is no longer in control, the moment fear enters the room, but it does not have to stay that way. The first step toward taking back control is understanding that these changes are not random. They are biological, predictable, explainable, and in many cases, reversible. If you know what is happening inside your body, you can fight it. You can rebuild strength. You can restore function. You can reclaim what you thought was gone forever. Some men wake up one day and realize something that terrifies them more than anything they could say out loud. Their erections no longer arrive the way they once did, not slowly fading over years, but suddenly, as if someone flipped a switch inside their body. 1 week, everything felt normal, and the next, the strength and fullness they had always counted on were gone. It feels impossible to understand. Nothing changed in their life. Nothing dramatic happened. But inside the penis, a silent transformation had already been unfolding. The truth is stark. When erections stop happening regularly, blood flow to the penis begins to decline. This is not symbolic, not emotional, not metaphorical. It is a physical event. The arteries that deliver blood into the erectile chambers begin to stiffen. The lining of those vessels becomes less flexible. Nitric oxide production, the chemical that triggers an erection, decreases sharply. Without regular expansion and compression of the erectile tissue, circulation becomes sluggish and oxygen supply falls to levels far below what the penis needs to stay healthy. And here is the most devastating part. When oxygen levels drop, the body begins a process of cellular change that can alter the penis permanently. Smooth muscle cells that once allowed the penis to expand and harden start to die. In their place, the body lays down collagen, a fibrous material similar to scar tissue. That collagen stiffens the erectile chambers and reduces their ability to fill with blood. Over time, erections become weaker, shorter in duration, and far more difficult to maintain. Some men describe it as if the penis feels hollow or like it has lost its internal structure. Others say it feels tight, rigid, or resistant, as though something deep inside is restricting them. This is not aging. Aging alone does not cause erections to collapse so dramatically. This is what happens when blood supply is reduced for too long. Just like a riverbed begins to dry and crack when the water no longer flows, the penis begins to harden and narrow when circulation disappears. And when the body replaces muscle with collagen, the tissue becomes less elastic, less responsive, and less capable of achieving the pressure required for a strong erection. Many men blame themselves. They think they waited too long. They feel ashamed, angry, or confused. They avoid intimacy out of fear of failure. And that avoidance only deepens the cycle. But the emotional pain is the part almost no one talks about. The quiet grief of losing a function that once defined their sense of power. The frustration of wanting connection but fearing humiliation. The loneliness of pretending nothing is wrong. There is a moment many men never forget, the first time they realize they can feel touch but not the spark. The first time stimulation that once ignited instant arousal produces nothing but numbness, confusion, and silence. It can feel like someone turned down the volume on the body, like the connection between the mind and the penis has been unplugged. And because it happens quietly and gradually, most men don't know when the change began. They only know the moment they finally notice it, and the shock feels like a punch to the chest. This is one of the most painful and hidden consequences of long periods without sexual activity. When the penis stops receiving regular stimulation and erections grow less frequent, the neural pathways responsible for arousal begin to weaken. The brain and the penis communicate through a network of sensory nerves and chemical signals. And when that communication is not used, the pathways begin to fade. Arousal slows, sensitivity dulls. Pleasure becomes harder to access. What once felt electric becomes muted, distant, and uncertain. Men describe it differently. Some say it feels like the skin has lost its response. Others say that their brain no longer reacts to visual or emotional stimulation the way it once did. For some, arousal arrives so slowly that they lose confidence and stop trying. And for others, orgasm becomes something they struggle to reach or cannot reach at all. It is not just a physical loss. It is an emotional unraveling. It is the feeling of being disconnected from one's own body, trapped inside a silence no one else can hear. And the emotional weight of this change can be profound. Men begin to avoid intimacy, not because they don't want it, but because they fear the pain of disappointment. They worry about letting their partner down. They fear being seen as weak. They wonder if the part of them that wants to find their passion, their power, their identity has been taken away forever. But the truth is that this neurological decline is not irreversible. The brain can rebuild pathways. Sensitivity can return, arousal can reawaken. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, does not disappear with age. It responds to stimulation, repetition, blood flow, and emotional connection. The body waits for a signal to rebuild, and once it receives that signal, astonishing recovery is possible. Some men say the most painful part is not the physical change. It is the moment they realize they no longer recognize the man staring back at them in the mirror. Not because of age or wrinkles or gray hair, but because of a quiet emptiness inside, a hollow space where confidence, pride, passion, and purpose once lived. They look at themselves and feel like they disappeared somewhere along the way, swallowed by silence, by fear, and by a loneliness they never expected to face. It often begins with one failed direction, then another, and with each attempt, the anxiety grows heavier, the doubt grows louder, and the belief that they are still capable slips further away. They stop trying, not because they don't want intimacy, but because the fear of failure becomes greater than the desire for connection. They avoid closeness. They make excuses. They turn away from affection because they cannot bear the thought of letting someone down or feeling ashamed. They start telling themselves they are better off alone, that it doesn't matter anymore, that they don't care, but deep down, they do care. They care more than they will ever admit. Sexual inactivity does something that few people talk about openly. It changes the mind. It changes the heart. It changes the way a man views himself and the world around him. Without intimacy, emotional isolation grows stronger. A sense of worth begins to erode. Stress increases. Sleep worsens. Energy fades. A man who once felt powerful, alive, needed, wanted begins to feel invisible, and invisibility is one of the most brutal forms of suffering. Some men grieve silently for the parts of life they once took for granted, the spontaneous laughter, the warm touch of a partner, the confidence of knowing their body would respond when called upon. They miss the feeling of being connected, understood, wanted. They long for the spark that once made them feel unmistakably alive. Yet they bury that longing beneath silence because silence feels safer than disappointment. But here is the truth that matters. The emotional pain surrounding sexual decline is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of humanity. It means you cared. It means you lived. It means connection mattered. And no man should carry that weight in silence, pretending everything is fine while piece by piece his spirit collapses. And what most men do not realize is that this emotional shift triggers a biological chain reaction, a shift that begins to reshape the body from the inside out. Because when emotional withdrawal and sexual inactivity collide, testosterone begins to crash and the decline accelerates with surprising speed. It affects not only desire, but strength, energy, and the very foundation of masculine health. There is a moment many men never see coming, and when it arrives, it hits harder than any physical symptom. One morning they wake up and realize the desire that once felt automatic, natural, unstoppable has vanished. No spark, no hunger, no drive, not even the thought. It is as if someone reached inside their body and turned off the switch that powered their masculinity. And that silence, the absence of desire, can feel more devastating than the loss of an erection itself. Because without desire, a man begins to feel disconnected from the very force that once fueled his confidence, his energy, his motivation, and his identity. What most men don't know is that long periods without sexual activity can trigger a steep decline in testosterone levels. Testosterone is not just a hormone. It is the foundation of male vitality. It affects desire, muscle strength, mental clarity, mood stability, fat distribution, and the ability to feel alive. When intimacy disappears, the body reads that silence as a signal that sexual function is no longer needed. The brain reduces hormonal output. The testicles slow down production. Chemicals responsible for desire begin to shut down, and a loop of decline forms. Men begin to feel tired more often, physically weaker, emotionally flat, and mentally unfocused. The things that once excited them now feel dull. They lose ambition. They lose passion. They lose the fire they once carried with pride. They stop pursuing goals, stop seeking connection, stop believing in themselves the way they once did. And the longer testosterone declines, the harder it becomes to climb out of the spiral. Because low testosterone feeds directly into erectile dysfunction, and erectile dysfunction further lowers testosterone. It is a loop that tightens like a rope around the mind, the body, and the spirit. And the emotional impact is rarely spoken aloud. Men begin to feel like spectators instead of participants in their own lives. They watch themselves from a distance, remembering who they used to be and wondering what happened. Some blame age, some blame stress, some blame fate. But deep inside, they fear something worse. The belief that the strongest part of them may never return. And that fear is heavy. It sits quietly inside the chest and whispers that the best years are gone. But the truth is far different. Testosterone can recover. Desire can reignite. The body can rebuild hormonal strength when given the right signals through physical stimulation, blood flow, nutrition, strength training, sleep restoration, and emotional reconnection. The story is not over unless a man decides to stop fighting. Some men describe a change that is more frightening than a weak erection or the loss of desire. They say that their penis no longer feels like it belongs to them, as if something inside has hardened, tightened, or become resistant. They notice that when an erection finally does appear, it feels strained, uncomfortable, or restricted, like the tissue is fighting against itself rather than working with them. And for some, the shock comes when they see a bend or curve they never had before, a shape that suddenly looks unfamiliar and threatening. It is a moment that freezes the breath in their chest because they know something deeper is happening, something beyond simple aging. What they are experiencing is the beginning of a structural transformation that occurs when blood flow is reduced for too long. When the penis is not regularly filled with high-pressure blood, the smooth muscle inside the erectile chamber starts to weaken. Collagen builds up and forms stiff patches within the tissue, similar to internal scar tissue. Over time, these patches can create areas of resistance, pulling and tightening during an erection. This is the early stage of Peyronie's disease, a condition where fibrous plaques distort the erection, causing curvature, pain, shortening, or twisting. Men who develop this condition often describe feeling betrayed by their own body. They fear intimacy even more than before, terrified of embarrassment or discomfort. Some say they feel broken, others say they feel punished. And the silence around this condition makes the loneliness even deeper because too many men believe they are the only ones facing it. But the pain runs further than physical discomfort. It strikes the heart. It shakes identity. It makes men question their worth, their future, and their place in relationships. They mourn the body they once trusted, the power they once carried, the sense of self that once stood tall and unshakable. Yet, the story is not finished. What men must understand is that Peyronie's disease and penile tightness do not appear out of nowhere. They are the result of a process that can be slowed, stopped, and often reversed when addressed early. Blood flow can be restored, tissue can soften, curvature can be reduced, pain can disappear. But none of that can happen if a man keeps suffering in silence, pretending nothing is wrong while the condition progresses. There is a moment in nearly every man's journey when he believes it is too late, when the decline feels irreversible, when he convinces himself that recovery belongs to younger men, not to someone in his 60s or 70s. And that belief becomes the most dangerous symptom of all. It steals hope long before the body has truly failed. But here is the truth that shocks most men more than any diagnosis. The penis is one of the most responsive organs in the human body. It can heal, it can rebuild, it can regenerate strength, sensitivity, and function long after a man believes his time has passed. The decline you have experienced is not a sentence, it is a signal. The male body was designed to repair and restore tissue continuously, and the erectile system is no exception. When blood flow increases again, when oxygen saturates the erectile chambers, when the neural pathways are reactivated, the tissue begins to soften, expand, strengthen, and reawaken. Smooth muscle can grow again. Collagen stiffening can shrink. Nerves can reconnect. Arousal pathways can reignite. Testosterone can rise, and the emotional fire that once defined masculinity can return with a force that many men describe as being reborn. I have seen men who went 5 years without a single erection regain full function. I have watched men who believed they were finished walk back into my office standing taller, smiling wider, proud again. I have watched marriages rescued, confidence rekindled, and men who had given up completely rediscover the version of themselves they thought was lost forever. Recovery is not reserved for the lucky. It belongs to the determined. It belongs to the man who refuses to surrender. And rebuilding does not require perfection or youth. It requires decision. It requires action. It begins with small steps. Restoring regular erections through stimulation or devices that increase blood flow, strengthening the pelvic floor, moving the body, breathing deeply, eating for circulation, demanding sleep, reducing alcohol, refusing to live in silence. Every forward action sends a signal to the brain and the body that sexuality matters, that life is still unfolding, that there is more strength waiting beneath the surface. The body listens, and when it hears that message consistently, it begins to rebuild faster than most men ever expect. Within weeks, morning erections return. Within months, strength and confidence grow. For many, the transformation is not just physical, It is emotional. It is spiritual. It is the moment a man stops surviving and starts living again. Here is a truth almost no one tells men until the damage has already begun. When sexual activity disappears and erections fade, it is not just the penis that suffers. The entire body begins to age faster. The decline you feel is not isolated to the bedroom. It is written in the arteries of your heart, in the sharpness of your mind, in the strength of your muscles, and in the length of your life itself. Because erections are not just a sexual function, they are a direct measurement of cardiovascular health. If the blood vessels in the penis cannot deliver enough blood to create a strong erection, the same process is likely unfolding inside the arteries that keep your heart alive. The penis is often the body's first warning sign that the system is failing. Research shows that men who go long periods without sexual activity have a significantly higher risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, chronic inflammation, depression, and early mortality. Intimacy and regular erectile function improve circulation, support immune strength, balance hormones, protect memory, reduce stress chemicals, and keep blood vessels supple. The body is interconnected. When one system weakens, the others follow. When erections disappear, it is often a sign that the vascular system is struggling, that blood flow has slowed, that inflammation has risen, and that the engine that once drove strength and vitality is losing power. Men often believe that choosing celibacy or inactivity is harmless, but biology tells a different story. Without intimacy, the heart works harder, the brain loses stimulation, the endocrine system downshifts, muscles weaken, sleep worsens, fatigue spreads. The world feels duller, heavier, quieter. Purpose and motivation fade. Life becomes something to endure instead of something to fully inhabit. And the emotional silence of isolation becomes as dangerous as any physical disease. I have watched men who lost intimacy become shadows of the vibrant, powerful men they once were. They move slower. They speak less. They stop laughing the way they used to. They stop dreaming. They stop believing there is anything ahead worth fighting for. The decline is not always visible from the outside, but inside it feels like a slow disappearance, like shrinking away from the world, like fading before you are gone. But the other side of the story is profoundly hopeful. When sexual health is restored, life returns, blood flow strengthens, the heart performs better, the mind sharpens, energy rises, depression lifts, men stand taller, they speak louder, they re-enter their lives with force and purpose. Relationships rekindle, joy returns, and longevity increases, not just in years, but in quality, dignity, independence, and meaning. Sexual function is not about ego or vanity. It is about staying alive. It is about waking up every day feeling powerful instead of defeated. It is about choosing life instead of surrender. And for men over 60, it is not a luxury. It is essential. If you are still here with me, it means something inside you refuses to give up. Something still believes in possibility. Something still remembers the man you were and knows he is still in there waiting to be awakened. And that matters more than anything I could tell you about anatomy, hormones, or blood flow. Because recovery does not begin in the body. It begins in the mind, in the decision to stop accepting decline as destiny. Every man reaches a crossroads. And maybe you are standing there right now. One path is familiar. It is quiet, heavy, lonely. It asks nothing, demands nothing, risks nothing. It convinces you to shrink, to stay small, to surrender slowly, piece by piece, until you disappear before your time. And then there is the other path, the one that requires courage, the one that feels uncomfortable and uncertain, the one that demands honesty and action, the path where you take back control, where you rebuild, where you rise again, not just as a sexual being, but as a man with purpose, strength, fire, and dignity. There is no shame in struggling. There is no weakness in asking for help. There is no failure in falling. The only true failure is choosing not to stand back up. I have spent more than 30 years sitting across from men who felt broken, hopeless, embarrassed, and defeated. They believed their best years were behind them. They believed they had nothing left to fight for. And one by one, I watched those same men transform. I watched their faces change, their posture lift, their voices strengthen. I saw marriages heal. I saw confidence return. I saw them walk back into life with power and pride. And every one of them started the same way you are starting now, by learning the truth, by refusing to hide, and by deciding that decline would not write the final chapter. If you are listening to this right now, you are not done. You are not too old. You are not broken. You are not invisible. You are a man with more strength in you than you realize. Your body can rebuild. Your desire can reignite. Your intimacy can return. Your heart can beat harder and longer. Your future can expand instead of shrink. But nothing changes until you decide. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. You deserve more than survival. You deserve vitality. You deserve connection. You deserve to feel alive again. And that journey begins today, not with perfection, but with one decision to fight for the life you still want. So here is my invitation to you. Choose yourself. Choose your strength. Choose to step back into your power. The next chapter begins now, and you do not have to walk it alone.